Hello, folks in the vinyl community. This is Greg at the Vinyl Rundown. I'm brand new to YouTube, and I'm going to take my first shot at one of these contests. So the first contest I learned about was from the Omaha Introvert. That's Hannah. All right, so three female artists. The first one is a mega huge star, but Carole King. This album goes back to 1971. This was such a huge phenomenon when it first came out. She was a staff songwriter, wrote a bunch of hit songs for other groups that became hits, and then somebody encouraged her to put her own voice to her songs. So she's written and performed all these songs in this style that I would consider like very personal, intimate songs, telling personal stories. And you could say she invented this genre. I mean, this album was such a huge phenomenon. My dad played it all the time. 1971, such a huge year for vinyl. So anyway, which side are we on here? Tapestry, and there's a gatefold, and she actually knitted or created this tapestry that they use for the cover and the title. A lot of great hit songs on here. She's become such a mega star. She's written like over 100 hit pop songs, mostly for other artists. And then in the last few years, they did this Broadway show about her life, Beautiful, which I have not seen yet, but I've heard great things about it. So Carole King, this album is easy to find in thrift stores for $1 or $2 because they sold 25 million copies of it. So I always pick it up when I find it, and I actually give it away to people all the time. Okay, number 2. I got the albums, but do I have a picture of the lady herself? So I got a whole stack of albums from X. Let me get a good picture of Exene. Exene Cervenka. Here's a classic from one of the early records. Can you see Exene? Yeah, cool photo. Exene of X. X is like the most important punk band from the early days of, or at least the most important LA punk band. And it's great having a female voice and a female sensibility in a punk band. Exene is a songwriter, a poet, an artist, and sings great harmonies. And like, what does harmony have to do with punk rock, which is all about chaos and disharmony? Somehow she figured out a way to make it work. So go through some of these records real quick. Which one is this? I can't see without my glasses. More Fun in the New World. And one of the later ones. Can't read the title without my glasses. The most important one of all, Los Angeles. And the sad thing is, we lost our original copy. I bought all these, or my wife bought all these in the early 80s when X was really big, when I was in college. And we lost Los Angeles, so I had to actually pony up the big bucks and pay like $20 for a copy of Los Angeles. But that is the classic X album, Under the Big Black Sun. Also really good. There's a good picture of Exene on this one. There she is. X is like the only band out there where 35 years later, all the original members are still there. No changes in the lineup at all. This one is really good. Wild Gift. So X has had a bit of a resurgence in the last few years. We saw them play a New Year's Eve concert at a club a couple years ago. And then I saw John Doe play without Exene at a local dive bar. And I think I have some photos to show of that. I got up really close, like right against the stage. That was amazing. And then the LA Grammy Museum did a nice retrospective on X, which we went to see. So all the memorabilia, all the clothing and music equipment, and photography, really cool exhibition on X. And then, oh, by the way, Hannah had mentioned that Exene is one of her favorite artists, so good taste, Hannah. So let me go to the last artist here in just a second. Let me grab the records. All right, Rickie Lee Jones. I mentioned her in my tag video, and we've got tons of her stuff on vinyl also. And so she's a really unique artist. She combines jazz and blues and R&B and soul. What am I missing? Pop, maybe. So her first hit record, maybe her only hit record, she had that song Chuck E. in Love. Chuck E. is in Love. Chuck E. is a real person in Los Angeles. Chuck E. Weiss, initial E. I saw him play like 30 years ago. But after that, her albums were more of this personal, intimate quality. And she has this vulnerability in her voice that I could only compare to Billie Holiday. Not that they sound alike, but they both show this really personal vulnerability that, and they both do a thing with pitch where just pitch is all over the place in a good way. They really use pitch to show the emotion in the song. Let me show you a couple of these records here. This is a 10-inch that came out, I think, early 80s, and it's got a great version of Don't Walk Away, Renee on it, and My Funny Valentine, super intense version. That's half live and half studio, the two sides. And a 10-inch, I don't know where we can put that in there. What's this? Another 10-inch. Working at the record store, we got all kinds of crazy stuff. This was a big record that came out. Magazine. Yeah, good record. And Pirates, I guess, was her second record. Let me grab one more. So the unique thing about Rickie Lee Jones is, like I said, the intimacy and vulnerability in her voice and her singing style. And she does something that nobody else does, which is you can hear her crying, literally crying on a lot of the tunes. Like she gets that emotional and intense that you can hear the breathing and the choked up voice, and she's just tearing up. So if you can get through a Rickie Lee Jones album without getting emotional, then you're cold, bro. So here's another album that I love of hers, and actually didn't sell very well. This copy I got for $4, cut out, destroyed by doing the cutout thing on CD. It's called Pop Pop, but it's really not a pop album. It's more of a jazz album. A lot of jazz standards on here, like My One and Only Love and Spring Can Really Bring You Down. Would love to find this on vinyl. I checked yesterday before making this video. There's 3 copies for about $120 and a US copy for $350. So that's how good this album is. It's rare. They didn't make a lot of them, but people who know the music know that it's very good. So that's my 3 ladies of music. Let's move on to subgenres. So when I think of subgenre, and that's a great question, Hannah, by the way. Not enough people are talking about subgenres. And sometimes they're talking about these, what I call microgenres, like, yeah, I'm into Scandinavian Gothic, death, metal, core, whatever. I mean, come on, people, let's get serious. If your subgenre is a sub microgenre, maybe there's only one band, and let's give me a break. So here's my subgenre. It's one that a lot of you haven't heard of, and you're going to say, what is he talking about? Start with a DVD. Philip Glass composed the music on this thing called Koyaanisqatsi. And the subgenre I'm talking about is called minimalism. Did I say that right? Minimalism, like the minimum. This is a 20th century sort of classical or modern classical genre. And it's one of these genres where the people in it said, hey, we're throwing away everything that came before us. We're throwing away melody and harmony and chords. And the main thing they're throwing away is kind of, in Western music, we have like this drama, like tension and release and resolution. You know, emotions go up and down. Oh, happy, happy, sad, excited. You know, sort of the story arc that a lot of songs and big classical pieces take. Throw that away, and what we're left with is repetition of the same notes, very simple structure of notes and rhythm and pulsation. So if you're familiar with Koyaanisqatsi, Philip Glass soundtrack, but also a pretty intense movie, there's no plot, there's no characters, there's no storyline, it's just visual imagery. And if you're familiar with the photographic technique of hyperlapse, not time-lapse, but hyperlapse, this is like an hour of hyperlapse imagery with really cool music. So I don't have that much of this on vinyl, but the other composers you should be aware of. John Adams, really interesting composer. Hard to find this stuff, to be honest, because they didn't make that much of it. And here's the nice one I just got. Steve Reich. Or is it Reich? I guess it's Steve Reich. This is music for 18 musicians. It was just re-released on the None Such label. Both of these records are on the None Such label, by the way. It used to be a budget classical label, and now it's like kind of very artsy, but really well-regarded quality artists. So Wilco is on there, and Black Keys, and Bill Frisell. So little tidbit for you guys. None Such does a half-off sale once a year around Christmas time. So that's where I got this and a couple other things over a year ago. Okay, that's minimalism. Now I'm going to go to another subgenre that's equally or even more obscure. It's called modal jazz. M-O-D-A-L. Modal, like a mode. What is he talking about? What is modal jazz? A mode in music theory, I don't want to teach you music theory, but I want you to know what I'm talking about. A mode is like a key, every key, like A minor and B flat. There's 7 modes within the key. I won't go any further than that. But has anyone heard of modal jazz? I mean, how obscure is this subgenre? Well, maybe you've heard of this record, modal jazz. Yeah, that's right. Miles Davis was known for recreating music like every 10 years, and in this period, this was not necessarily the first modal jazz record, but in this period he was breaking away from bebop and getting away from the concept of chord changes. That was what bebop was basically all about, taking chord changes of popular songs, taking the melody and expounding on the melody and improvising a lot of notes and the ability to play through chord changes quickly. Bebop improvisation and hard bop. So Miles kind of walked away from that and said, well, let's try just staying in one chord or in one mode for an extended period of time. And so like the minimalism, this is kind of about staying in one zone and not kind of moving up and down in dramatic tension and resolution that's common in Western music. So the concept of staying in one mental place, like almost meditating in one zone for a while and zoning out into that deeply. Sometimes we call that steady state music, which is popular in like Indian cultures and Far Eastern cultures. So this became a big thing, Miles Davis, and this is a really important, well-known modal album, Herbie Hancock, Maiden Voyage. And after Bill Evans was piano player with Miles in the first big quintet, Herbie Hancock was the kind of main harmonic guy in this band, and Wayne Shorter. And John Coltrane is also big in modal jazz. So you won't walk into a store and say, do you have any modal records? People might not know what you're talking about. But I do hear musicians talk about, hey, he was really playing very modal in that solo. So it's used as more of an adjective than a true style, but Wikipedia recognizes it as a subgenre. So it's real. Modal jazz. All right, guys. We'll move on to a piece of stereo equipment here. All right, guys, this is my turntable. It's the Riga P7. In its day, it was the second best turntable that Riga made. Now they've gone on to make the P8 and 9 and 10 that are more expensive. Riga is known for really high quality tone arms, and this one's tone arm has been modified a little bit. You may recognize it if you're a Riga fan. This one also has a really nice platter. So the platter on the high-end Rigas are made of a substance called Delrin, which I think is a ceramic known for its density and resonance, lack of resonance. And instead of a solid Delrin platter, this one is made up of these little hanging pucks, so it has a weird look when it's rotating. Love this thing. It sounds great. Doesn't look that good. It's kind of a weird looking turntable, but it It is my best of many turntables, and thanks for checking it out.